Hey, this is Darren McCarty, 4-time Stanley Cup champion with the Detroit Red Wings. You're listening to Out of Bounds Detroit Sports on sportsradiodetroit.com.
sportsradiodetroit.com.
We don't need TV to entertain us. You said anus.
You actually have to contribute.
Wow. You're welcome.
Just send a couple tweets, Dave.
You know what?
Get the job done.
You know what, guys? You're welcome for every guest ever.
Darren McCarty will be joining us to talk about, I don't know, what the fuck ever. If Mickey Redmond hadn't chosen hockey as his profession, he would undoubtedly be a lumberjack.
True. Absolutely true. Or he would have played one on TV.
I must have been bombed.
You were very bombed.
Because I don't remember that at all.
Was she a good sport about it? Did she enjoy your antics?
Yeah, she giggled a little bit.
Yeah, and she's a nice gal. Yeah, welcome. Out of Bounds Detroit Sports. David Faze, Mike Tripp, and myself, Dan Griffin, invading your ear hole, as always, on sportsradiodetroit.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever the hell you listen to podcasts. Please leave us a... Are we having an issue with the headphones there? Pull that...
Mine. Shit, I can't even hear myself.
Just pull that thing out there. We forgot to adjust the splitter there. Just pull that splitter out. Pull the whole splitter out.
I did.
Show meeting on the air. No, pull the splitter out. Dave, you know what I'm talking about. Pull the big splitter out.
Oh, that.
Put the small splitter in. We'll get this done. Probably should have done this before we started the show. But, you know, let's turn the music back up. We'll start over.
Hello?
How about now? Everything good now? That's right.
Now it's good.
Are we alive? I hate that shitty splitter. What was I saying? SportsRadioDetroit.com, all that good stuff?
I mean, why have we not bought a new splitter?
It's a good question. It's one of those things that you don't think about till you need it. You know, because we only use that second splitter when we have a fourth mic.
You mean like my mic stand I continually need to remember to buy?
Well, look at this. Mine's held together with duct tape. Yours is held together with paper clips and rubber bands.
Our studio's a disaster.
It's just like, I thought our show was better than this. I know it's taken a downward turn.
Hey, can I literally start the show off with a piece of breaking news from college sports?
I had a dream about this moment when I was making love to my wife Donna.
Yeah, sure, but you gotta give me a second to get the sounder going.
I'm patient. So I know we're going to get into conference tournaments and the big tournament and seeding situations and all that stuff coming up at some point. We're not going to do it right this second, but I felt like this was important. Yeah. Duke lost tonight to Virginia Tech.
My goodness.
That's a big loss right before tournament weekend, man.
Goodness.
Big loss.
And they were already a little bit underseeded, in my opinion.
They were. So we'll see what that does to their seeding. That's gonna throw some things out of whack.
Yeah, Red Wings made a trade today.
Sure did.
But I wanted to start. I just wanted to start the show on a little bit of a fluffier note here. Is that the right adjective? I don't really know.
Fluffy.
I'll make that determination when I hear what you're about to say.
Yeah, honestly.
Well, I was first of all, I was going back and I was watching old episodes of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Uh-huh.
Like last night, I was watching these episodes, and I was watching the episodes with what I dubbed the pre-gay kid, Greg.
Yeah.
Now, Dave has called me out multiple times saying there's no such thing as pre-gay, and we'll have that argument again, I'm sure, at some point. But you know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about Greg from season 7 and season 8.
Classic Greg. Classic Greg.
If you're a Curb fan, you know, if you're a Larry David fan, you know what the hell I'm talking about. But here's the thing. I went out today. I'm not going to say where and I'm not going to say how, but I met my first ever pre-gay kid today.
I thought you were going to say you met Greg. No,
basically I did. He was the same age. He was 7 years old. And I'm looking at this kid and I'm listening to him talk and all the things that he's interested in, and I'm going, this kid, there is no way this kid's not going to enjoy copious amounts of hoagie when he's older. There's no way.
Were you like at a store, like at a person's house?
I was at a person's house.
All right.
And I met Greg.
Okay.
You had to be there. First of all, kid always had a booger hanging out of his nose the whole time I was there. Like, it was the same booger just the whole time I was there.
Well, that's not very fair. He's already a little bit behind Greg, because that would never happen to Greg.
Greg would never allow that to happen.
Exactly.
Not while he was watching Project Runway. But this, I mean, the way this kid carried himself, the way he spoke, I had never met a 7-year-old kid that I looked at and I went, this kid's going to be a homosexual. There's no way he's not going to be gay. He has to be gay.
You know, some of them hide it pretty well. Some gay people, you would have, like Neil Patrick Harris, right?
Yeah.
Had he never come out, you would never know. He just doesn't carry himself that way. But then you have the opposite end of the spectrum, where it's like there's no way of hiding what you are. Not that they should have to. I'm not saying they should have to, but
no, there's nothing wrong with it.
No, not at all.
I had just never seen it before.
Greg, Larry brought you something for your birthday.
And again, that is
so
great.
Excited.
Happy birthday!
Oh my God, let me check, what is it?
What is it?
What is it?
It's a sewing machine. It's a sewing machine. It's a sewing machine! Oh my God, I'm gonna make the Gaunt the Wing costume, make St. Louis, the Wizard of Oz.
You're gonna make the Wizard of Oz costume?
Yes!
Which one?
Dorothy. I love it.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry.
You're welcome, Greg.
Nana.
A sewing machine?
Yeah, he loved it.
What, are you trying to turn him gay? He is a happy, healthy, normal 7-year-old boy. What is the matter with you?
I think he might be gay.
That's the kid I met today. If I had brought this kid a sewing machine, he would have absolutely loved it. But here's the thing: these kids, I met 3 kids today, and they were all homeschooled by their mom. And I don't really think there's necessarily anything wrong with homeschooling, but I will tell you this: these kids are all going to be Charmin soft. They are all so soft.
Yeah, I mean, there's no direct correlation between homeschooling and homosexuality, but there's absolutely direct correlation between homeschooling and life experience.
I mean, these kids were they were the sweetest kids.
I went to prom with my mom.
They were super nice kids.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you are not going to be prepared for the world.
No.
You have no idea. Like, you've never met an asshole in your entire life. It's like from that new Chris Rock stand-up. Have you guys seen that yet? About how bullying is important because it's half the education that you get. You have to learn how to deal with assholes.
True.
And these kids have never met an asshole in their entire life. They've never dealt with an asshole. Like the little girl that was there, she was the oldest, and she was so kind. She was so worried about a mouse that got caught in a mouse trap.
I was gonna say the only asshole they may have met is the asshole family cat. You know, because every one of them's got a family cat.
Yeah, or I might have been the biggest asshole they've ever met. Like that might really be the case.
It's possible.
Oh, I feel so bad for these kids. They're gonna be so soft. They're gonna be.
Those are
I couldn't help but feel worried.
You know what's funny is those are the kids that are gonna wind up. Okay, not 100% of the time, obviously. I'm not trying to make a blanket statement here because obviously it would be an incredibly inaccurate statement to make. But those are the types of kids that oftentimes are the ones you see go off the rails in terms of trying all sorts of different things when they actually go off to college. Because it's like they have no... That's how they're trying. They're trying to get every life experience
become junkies or sluts.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to say possibly both, but just they're the ones that do a lot of experimenting. I feel like that a lot of times those are the kids.
We have actual future audio.
Sheltered.
We have actual future audio from those boys when they finally get off to college.
Yeah, I even wore my tight underwear for the boner speech.
Yeah,
I thought you were going with the Dennis Rodman. I thought that's where we were going to go.
No,
there.
I will say this: the mother did seem relatively progressive. She might teach her children that it's okay to masturbate, but then I did hear the dad say something about going off to church. so maybe not.
I was going to say, if you want to see something kind of really messed up when it comes to homeschooling. There's a movie that came out some years ago called Movie 43, and in it they had a 5-6 minute short movie about homeschooling and how soft the kids get. And
Yeah, all right, I'll see you guys there.
That movie was messed up, by the way.
The parents portray like the asshole friends, like they're always like, and they're teaching their kids, homeschooling, and yet they're being assholes to their children, trying to, so they know what it's like.
So they're getting both sides of the education that
Exactly.
Chris Rock was talking about.
Exactly.
You got to check out that stand-up.
And
That's pretty damn
and
good.
then there's that the other like 6 to 8 minute bit that's Halle Berry and Steven, God, what the hell is his name? The tall ass dude.
Oh,
Ricky
yes.
Gervais's buddy, Steven. God, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Super tall dude. I can't remember his last name right now off the top of my
And
head.
they kept getting like
And
surgeries.
they play Truth or Dare basically on a first date, and it just becomes like a one up, and they do the most.
A velvet painting of a whale and a dolphin.
Like he winds up getting like lip injections. She gets the most gigantic boobs you've ever seen.
And don't they end up like becoming Asian or something like that? Or
He does. He does.
right.
Yeah. I mean, it is so horrifically racist and like, and it's just it's awful, but it makes you laugh so hard.
problem.
So yeah,
That movie's messed up.
Go check out Movie 43, guys.
So long, gay boys.
You know what's funny is when I saw the preview for that film, I thought it was going to be like another, like the superhero movie or the disaster movie, like the ones that were a complete parody of things, and it is to a degree. But it's so much more than that, though. Like, because it's got huge stars in it. That's the thing. Like, it's not like a bunch of B-list movie actors that you've never seen before.
Life is not a fairy tale.
It's a bunch of A-listers.
Although sometimes it feels like our world is full of fairies. You know who I'm talking about.
It's messed up, dude. It's a messed up movie.
I'm telling you, these kids, they're so nice. They were so sweet, and they were very social, and I just feel, in a way, I feel bad for them. Like, I'm happy for them now, because obviously they live in that, like, utopia where, like, nothing's wrong. Nobody makes fun of them. They don't have any problems.
So then are they acting like the, what was the name of that family in South Park? That new family that comes to town, the overly happy family, and that Stan comes and...
Was that from this season?
No, that it was the when Stan starts learning about Joseph Smith and the Mormon religion.
Oh yeah, because I'm behind. I didn't finish the full last season. I have like 4 episodes I didn't watch.
I don't even think I finished
the most
either.
recent one. But man, I finally know what it's like to meet, like, Dave. If you had met this kid, you would know what I mean when I say pre-gay. There's no way he knows he's gay yet. He's 7 years old.
There's never been an issue with me understanding what you mean by that term. It's been a semantics issue whether I believe that to be a term that is legit.
Okay,
I understand what you're saying though. I get your point.
Butt stuff.
I don't think that was your point. Well, maybe it is.
I finally saw I, Tonya, too.
Did you? How was
Check
it?
that shit out yet?
I haven't seen it.
It was awesome.
I haven't seen a movie in a while, to be honest.
It was awesome. And here's the thing. It did not leave anything out of that story. I mean, everything was in it. Like, there were a few things in it that, like, maybe we don't know if they're 100% true. So there were, like, a few rumor things regarding the Tonya Harding, Nancy Kerrigan story. But everything was in it. Nothing was left out. Sean Eckert had an incredibly a far larger role in the film than I would have ever imagined he had. And the guy that they got to play Sean Eckert, the fat guy, the fat turd that actually hired the guys to smack Nancy Kerrigan's leg, looks and sounds just like the real Sean Eckert. I thought I was watching that guy. I thought they brought him out of the grave. And stood him up and somebody put a hand up his ass and used him as a puppet, because it was Sean Eckert. And I will say this too, because I know Margot Robbie's she's nominated for her role for Best Actress. I don't think she'll win it, because I think Lady Bird's going to clean up at the Oscars this year. But I will say that Margot Robbie nailed it. I thought I was watching Tonya Harding. The only difference is it was impossible to make Margot Robbie gross enough to actually resemble Tonya
That's not
Harding.
true if you've seen any clips, or not clips, but any like photos of her from that movie where she's playing like an 18th century English. I don't know if she's a queen or a duchess or what she is in this movie, but she looks horrendous.
I mean,
it's possible.
She looks pretty bad playing
It's
Tonya,
possible.
but here's the problem. Like, she looks pretty bad in the face playing Tonya Harding, but still, when she's out there skating with the spandex and shit on, like, it's still Margot Robbie's body.
Yeah.
It's not Tonya Harding's body that we're watching.
I'll tell you what, I haven't even seen it yet, but I want to. Well, I also want to see Lady Bird, and there's a few movies out that I haven't seen that I need to see. But I have a little bit of a soft spot for Saoirse Ronan. I just think she's adorable. And she's Irish, so it's tough to go wrong.
I can't go wrong.
It's tough to go wrong. She's a great actress. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I will say this, too. Allison Janney. I think she's
awesome. She's awesome.
I will be...
I haven't seen that movie.
I will actually be shocked if she doesn't win Best Supporting Actress.
Well, she won it at the Globes, didn't she? She won Best Supporting at the Globes. Yeah, dude, she's got a real good shot.
She was awesome.
You know what? She's been really good for a long time, and she's been one of those people that, and to a certain degree, flies under the radar a bit because she doesn't usually have like giant starring roles, but she's always good.
She's never been a lead.
No,
she's always a supporting actress.
She's always good though. She always plays a role really well.
You know what I think she was actually really good in, and people make fun of me because I like this film.
What's that?
Juno.
Yeah.
I thought she was awesome in Juno as the stepmom.
That movie also has one of my favorite actors working right now in J.K. Simmons.
Yeah,
I love J.K. Simmons, man. He's the best. But you've seen Whiplash, right?
Oh yeah,
phenomenal.
I will be shocked. I'll be more surprised certainly if Allison Janney doesn't win for Best Supporting Actress than I will if Margot Robbie doesn't win for Best Actress.
Sure,
because I think Margot Robbie killed it. I really do. If you got to see the film, you're going to think you're watching Tonya. And what's his nuts? The dude that played Jeff Gillooly.
Oh, is it Sebastian Stan, right?
Yes.
From if for anybody that doesn't know who that is, just for a lot of people that are probably know him from this other role, he plays Bucky Barnes / the Winter Soldier in the Marvel universe.
I did not realize I was watching him. I think he made Jeff Gillooly look too smart. I think that was kind of the issue that I had with him in the film. Like, he made Jeff Gillooly not look like the complete utter moron because that's what's so fascinating about the Tonya Harding, Nancy Kerrigan scandal is because everybody in the story is a fucking moron. Everybody's an idiot.
Hey, who plays Nancy Kerrigan? Anybody?
Oh, just some broad. She doesn't even have a line in the film.
All right.
Yeah, they just got some chick that kind of looked like Nancy, but that's what I was thinking. I'm like, she didn't even have a line in the movie.
Well, I mean, that makes sense, though, because the whole storyline was about Tanya's part of it. So
yeah,
I get that.
And here's the thing. What I think makes the film really good is, I mean, some people have kind of claimed that it's kind of a knockoff, but it has that Goodfellas feeling to it. Like, that's the way that the movie is filmed. It kind of the exact same way. The same kind of cinematography, the same, Tanya's narrating the whole movie. It was a good film.
I got a small kind of hidden gem film that you guys should both check out if you haven't seen it, and I think you guys will both enjoy it because I think from doing this show, I have a pretty good sense that you guys' sense of humor is similar enough to mine. I think you guys will enjoy it. I believe, if I'm getting it correctly, I'll look it up to make sure, but I believe it's called The Bronze, and it is a movie starring Melissa Rauch from The Big Bang Theory. Plays Bernadette in The Big Bang Theory, and the reason it brought it up was because Sebastian Stan also has a role in that movie as well. It was actually a movie written and created by Melissa Rauch and her husband, who is a writer in Hollywood, and it is about a fallen. And by the way, when you watch it, you will know automatically. There's a photo that is very popular from Tonya Harding back in the day with her zip up, windbreaker USA jacket, the ponytail in the back. Swear to God, they literally made sure that Melissa Rauch's character, that was what she was based off of, like that look.
Really?
The whole movie.
That's awesome.
Fantastic. She's a former gymnast who won bronze at the World Championships this is set in back in the 90s, so it's in the same kind of time frame. And then she I can't remember exactly what happened. She blew out her knee or something happened to her where she fell on a tough time. So she just becomes this debaucherous person.
Yeah.
She's living in her dad's house, and it's hilarious. And then her old coach dies, and she takes over training this next up and coming big time. It's fantastic. You should see it.
Just a part of me feels I know this sounds ridiculous, but part of me feels bad for Tonya because of shit like that. Because she just became this fucking punchline.
Well, it's she's a gymnast, not a skater.
Well, but it's
in this
based.
movie.
But you know what I'm saying.
But parts of it are based off of that kind of.
Based off of Tonya. Have you seen the trailer for the film, Mike? I'll play it for you.
Tonya, yeah.
I want to play it anyway because I love it. If it'll work.
The haters always say, Tonya, tell the truth.
I think she sounds like her. She talks like her. She's got the same facial expressions.
Everyone has their own truth.
The music in the movie is actually really good too.
Skater in the world at one point in time.
You call that a clean skate? Stop talking to her. That girl is your enemy.
Who's that? Jeff was my first date ever. And my mom came.
Mom's smoking cloves the whole movie.
I don't have a wholesome American family.
Nothing's ever your fault. I was embarrassed for you.
My entire life, I've been told I wouldn't amount to anything. And you know what? Maybe I would.
She does look pretty gross.
How do I get a fair shot here?
We also judge on presentation.
I'm gonna need it even the playing field. I know a guy, shouldn't even be saying his name.
Looks just like Sean Eckert.
Derek.
The press
Derek.
wanted me to be the pile of crap. I never did this.
What is going on?
We're with the FBI. They know something.
What can you tell us about Tonya Harding?
I don't know a Tony Harding.
When I was a kid, did you ever love me?
I made you a champion, knowing you'd hate me for it. That's the sacrifice a mother makes.
You cursed me. America. They want someone to love, but they want someone to hate. I mean, come on. What kind of friggin' person bashes in their friend's knee? Who would do that to a friend?
You know what I also noticed about the movie too? You remember the 30 for 30, the price of gold? I'm pretty sure that the scenes that they show her narrating as older Tonya Harding sitting at the kitchen table, if you listen to a lot of the things that she says, I'm pretty sure they pulled a shit ton of that from that documentary.
They may have.
I actually want to go back and watch the documentary and see how much was pulled from that documentary. God, the story is incredible. It's one of my favorite stories of all time because it's just so full of morons, and they pull off this big fucking heist-like deal and smash an Olympic champion's knee in. And the best part, because I had completely forgotten about this since I had watched the 30 for 30 documentary until I had watched the movie, and I busted out laughing in the middle of the theater, and nobody else did. Because I'm the only one that would find it funny.
I've been that guy before.
But it's a part where you find out that the guy that Sean Eckert hired to bash Nancy Kerrigan's knee in, the Derek guy that he's talking about, didn't realize for like 48 hours that Nancy Kerrigan wasn't actually at her training facility. She was in Detroit training for or about to compete for the Nationals. So he's in the parking lot outside of Nancy Kerrigan's training facility with cameras on the car, moving the car every 15 minutes to avoid suspicion. That is how dumb these guys are. And then Sean Eckert with his whole being involved in international espionage. You can't make this shit up. You just can't make it up. And it gets you thinking again. How much did Tonya know? I don't think she knew that moron was going to hire a guy to bash Nancy Kerrigan's knee in. What I think she knew was that it happened and who did it after the fact and didn't say anything. That's what I think she's guilty of. I don't think she was too busy fucking preparing to compete for the Nationals to worry about bashing Nancy Kerrigan's knee in. And then you find out as the story goes along, I think this was in the documentary too, that Sean Eckert had taken out a death threat against Tonya, which freaked her out, and then Jeff Gillooly decided, hey, it'd be a really fun idea if we did the same thing to Nancy Kerrigan and see what happens. So that was his idea, and then Sean Eckert just took it to the next level, and then Sean finally tells Jeff Gillooly later on that he was the one that actually took the death threat out against Tonya. It's just a story full of morons. A story full of morons. And when you consider what a bitch Nancy Kerrigan is, I still think that Tonya Harding in this story is the most likable person. And that is fucking crazy. she is, to me. I think she's the most... I root for her. I feel bad for Tonya because she's an outcast. Is it okay?
She made her comeback. She was at the Globes.
Am I allowed to like Tonya Harding? Like, is that like a thing that's not supposed to happen? Is that forbidden? Is that forbidden fruit?
No, she's not like a.
I will tell you this, and I guarantee you,
she's not like an enemy of the state. I mean, it's not like she's
But she doesn't take fault for.
I mean,
anything.
if you came on the show and said, "Oh, I love Kim Jong Un," I might have an issue there. But otherwise, I don't think liking Tonya Harding is a crime.
Well, because think about it this way: like, I don't give a shit about figure skating, but this story is awesome. Like, I got annoyed with figure skating during the Olympics because NBC likes to show it all the time. It's all they show is fucking figure skating. But I'm going to tell you right now, if somebody like Tonya Harding came along again, oh, you bet your sweet ass I would be involved in figure skating at the Olympics again. Because she just doesn't fit the mold, making her own costumes. You know what she does now?
I would love if that happened.
She's basically like a contractor now. Like she's like she builds houses, like fixes houses. Like that's what she's that much of a fucking redneck.
Wow.
Yeah, a figure skater. It doesn't work. I didn't mean to get off the rails so much on I, Tonya. I just really enjoyed the film, and I recommend it to everyone.
Somehow this became a movie podcast.
It did. When did that?
I don't know.
Hey, Roger, maybe you should throw this episode on SRD Pop. If he's still watching, I don't know if he's still watching, but he was a minute ago. What we were going to talk about. We're only 27 minutes in. I felt like I talked about that for a lot longer. I got really passionate there for a minute. I apologize. Check out the film. This college hoops scandal, man. Now, it started off locally. Miles Bridges' mom gets paid $400 or $4,000 or whatever the hell it was.
It was
400
to in quote unquote benefits. That's how it started here locally. But what we're finding out is that this is a common problem here in college basketball, dealing with agents, dealing with shoe companies. I mean, isn't that the whole reason Louisville got in trouble in the first place? Yeah. Like, all the blue bloods are in trouble right now.
Well, it's funny because, this comes out and...
That was a terrible segue.
In a weird way, no matter how much you already... How do I want to word this? No matter how much you may already have believed that this was the case, and really it's been almost common knowledge that this kind of shit has happened and been happening, it's still, for whatever reason, and I'm saying this regardless of the Miles Bridges thing, like just in general, actually seeing names and programs, attached to something, no matter who that is, actually seeing physical in-print, allegations against any particular student or program, it still kind of jolts you, no matter what program, just because it's the first, that's what's new about this. It's the first time this stuff is coming out so publicly, right? So, it's not like a shell shock that things of this nature are occurring. I think everybody's known that for a long time.
It was an FBI investigation, and they raided, what was the agent's name?
Christian Dawkins.
Yes, they raided his office.
AG something. I can't remember what that agency is, but anyway.
Yeah, they raided his office, because there were suspicions, and there were names, there were schools, there were cash exchanged. Miles Bridges' name was on there. Various other names were on there for far more money than the $400.
Yeah.
And nobody's surprised, and it doesn't seem like anybody cares. You know what I mean? Like, are you hearing vast amounts of outrage over this thing? Because I'm really not.
I think part of it is the fact that I think people would have been shocked more so and maybe been more appalled if Wichita State was involved. You know what I mean? Like a school like that. I think it's because of some of the schools that were involved in this early report. I think there are schools that a lot of people for a while have been like, how can they possibly get all of these kids to come, right?
But it's also schools that have had a reputation of being relatively clean, like Michigan State. Now, Michigan State's infraction or alleged infraction is very minor.
Incredibly minor in the grand scheme, yeah.
But still, when you consider Duke is involved.
Yeah.
Duke is a school that has always been regarded. Mike Krzyzewski has never been in trouble.
I know. Which just seems impossible.
It does, considering all the national championships and all the players that he's been able to woo to that school.
And I don't think he's I'm not trying to say or nor do I believe that Krzyzewski is like overtly dirty as a recruiter and a coach. But you get into the world that we're in now of collegiate athletics, and it is nearly impossible to do the things that he has done this consistently without a little bit of coercion on the side. You know what I mean? That's how I feel. Just because it's been so otherworldly, that the amount of talent and kids he's brought. And look, I understand Duke has built itself a reputation as a school that produces the kind of kids that they then are able to recruit the year after that and the year after that. So to a certain degree, it has kind of built itself up. But it's just, I mean, you even look at this upcoming year. How does one school in this age of recruiting get the top 3 recruits in a class? That's impossible. It just seems insane. That never happens.
The only time that happens is, when you have a Fab 5 situation where they're all buddies. Not that all 4 of those kids were all the top 4 recruits in the country, but they were all highly recruited talent.
Probably top 30.
Chris Webber being number 1, of course. But we even saw what happened there.
I was going to say, or you have 2 teammates from the same high school that have wanted to play together for forever and are good enough to get the scholarships to any of the schools, or brothers or something like that.
When you're pulling in kids from across the country,
that's the thing,
that have never met each other.
Yeah,
there's something going on.
They might know each other from like the AAU circuit, like they've played against each other from that. So they're like, "Hey, what's up, man? How you been or whatever." That's about it. Yeah, it's got to be something going on when you get that kind of a class. It just seems insane.
Which brings me to the whole point of this, right? Because first of all, nobody seems to care. I'm not seeing a ton of outrage here from anybody, really, and that may have to do with the fact that so many schools are involved. But I think it also has to do with the fact that we understand that the writing is on the wall, right? Like, when it comes to paying these collegiate athletes to play basketball or football. I guarantee you there's not a single coach in college football or college basketball that is going to say that there's something morally wrong with paying somebody for being good at a sport. And at the same time, I also don't believe they're going to say that there's anything morally wrong with paying a player more for being better at that sport. Because here's the issue that you're running into right now. There is not a chance in hell that the NCAA can possibly sanction all of the schools that have been involved in this scandal. We're looking at Michigan State. We're looking at Duke. We're looking at Kansas. We're looking at North Carolina. We're looking at the true blue bloods in college basketball.
You didn't even mention the one that seems to be in the deepest water right now.
Which is?
Arizona.
Arizona. Now they haven't been that great, but
I mean, they're a top 5 to 10 team ranked every single season. So I would say maybe they're not. Maybe
they're kind of the Tennessee of college basketball.
Maybe they're not blue blood. They're a little better than that. Maybe they're not a blue blood, but they're right there in that second echelon. So that's a big school to be involved.
The point is this: what's the NCAA going to do? You're going to put a postseason ban on every blue blood college in Division I basketball?
Well, here's the problem.
Well, what happens if you do that? What happens if you do that?
You lose a ton of revenue.
You lose so much revenue. Yeah. CBS pulls out. Turner Sports pulls out. You can't do that. So what do you have to do? You have to do what college sports has always done when it comes to their rules.
They bend them.
You move the line.
Yeah.
At the turn of the 20th century, and I just pulled this from an SI article, so I'm going to give credit where credit's due. I wish I could remember the author's name, but I love the way that it was written, because at the turn of the 20th century, people finally started to care about college sports. Athletic scholarships were not even available. Athletic scholarships were illegal. Then college sports started to make money. People are competitive. We live in a capitalist society. So you got to move the needle a little bit, right? To get those best players. How do we pay these players to come to our school? Well, we give them athletic scholarships. So the needle was moved a little bit there. And until you get it, you move the line all the way up to today, where students are getting stipends, free room and board, scholarship. We have always moved the line when it comes to college sports. There's only one line left, and that is paying these players. You have to do it. There is nowhere else to go from here. You have to do it. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I mean I've been on that train for a long time.
But I think the NCAA is now at a point where they're going to have to see you can't delay this anymore.
Well, they're the only, and I don't want this to sound obtuse, but they're the only part of this equation that has any issue with the players getting paid. The schools wouldn't care. No public person is going to give two shits. In fact, I think more people are probably on our end of thinking than anything else. I think almost anybody would say, you look at the amount of revenue that the NCAA committee makes off of the play of these young men, these 18, 19-year-old kids.
Not to mention bonuses for winning championships and making tournaments.
And you have a problem with them getting... Look, we're not trying to say these kids should get paid like pros. That's not the point. But the fact that the thing that makes me the most angry is that the argument that is always made, the counter argument that is immediately always brought up, like in a split second when you talk about paying players, is, oh well, they're already paid. They're paid through their scholarship.
Fuck you.
Okay, exactly. Because guess what? You know who else is paid via scholarship? 100,000 other kids at every university, and are they playing sports and making you money and being a student athlete? Which, by the way, I don't know if you've tried to do it. It's fucking hard.
Not to mention this. These kids, particularly football players, at blue blood programs, okay, they make the school all this money, and they're paid with their free education. Yeah. Why don't we look back to the North Carolina real sports scandal from about 2 years ago?
Yeah.
You know what kind of classes these kids take? These gen ed courses.
To use a word you used earlier, they're taking a lot of fluff.
Made up. Some of them are made up courses.
And they're not even
real.
Not every kid. We know that. There are some.
Are they really getting an education? No.
It's a facsimile of an education. It's a facade. It's being done in a way to say, oh yes, we are paying them to go to school. It's simply an appearances thing.
They get a degree.
That's all it is.
They get their gen ed degree. Yeah. They get their communications degree.
And here's the thing: any kid, and that's. I mean, and I understand this more so for football than for basketball.
A spider monkey could get a communications degree.
I mean, what do you got? Like 80 kids on a roster for a big time college football program and something like that, right?
Between the practice squad and walk-ons,
yeah, all together. I understand that probably only, and I'm using a ratio thing, not necessarily each. Obviously, not every program is going to have this kind of number, but
a racial thing?
Ratio.
Okay.
Ratio.
I thought it was about to get racial in this room for a second.
But what is it like 20% of all of college football kids, all of college football players actually make it to the pros, or is it even smaller than that? It's somewhere in that range.
Like 3%.
Is it that small?
Yes.
Okay, so let's
think about it. There's 150 Division I programs in college football, or 153, something like that.
So all right. So let's say you have a roster of 85 guys. You're talking like 6 players are actually going to make it to the pros, right? Somewhere around that range.
God, it feels like it would even be even less on average when you consider the mid majors.
But that's the thing is like it's the top 2% of programs that are sending most of their kids there. That's the thing. It's like it's not an even distribution. We know that. I mean, You look at the big time schools; those are going to be the ones sending everybody.
Yeah, even look at schools that send the most NFL players to the league, like a program like Alabama.
Yeah.
How many kids leaving Alabama every year actually make it to the NFL? And they send a lot of kids to the NFL. Of course they do.
12, maybe not even at 10.
And maybe they make a practice squad, some of them, and don't actually have an NFL.
You've probably
career.
got and yeah, I can say maybe half of those, maybe 6 of those guys are like actually like truly elite, like the guys that are like the surefire first or second rounders, and you know for a fact those guys are going to go right away. And then all the other guys, like you're like, oh well, he could go, he could be a 3rd or 4th round pick, or he could go undrafted. It's a lot of that kind of thing, and that's how it is for most schools. It's an insanely low percentage of those athletes that actually make it. And so that to me in itself is a reason why these kids are pouring their heart and soul into your school for a lot of them for 4 years, right? Some of them 4 or 5 years. And the fact that you make the kind of revenue that you do off of these players, and you have a problem with them getting some sort of a residual of that, fuck you.
You're free room and board. You stick them in a fucking closet with a bunk bed.
The NCAA is so fucking corrupt. That committee is so corrupt. It's insane. And it's always been. It's been like that for forever.
Well, here's the thing. Mark Emmert came out and he said, he made 2 statements. One of them incredibly accurate, very true, and the other one patently false.
I wonder. I'm curious to see which ones you're going to say because there's something I have a comment. But anyway, go ahead.
He came out and he said that the system has failed.
Okay.
That's a 125,000% accurate.
Correct.
It absolutely has failed. But the other thing he came out and said was that anybody, whether it be coach, and I'm paraphrasing here, whether it be coach or player that would involve themselves in these financial wrongdoings has no place in the college game. Patently false. Patently false. And that's very, very interesting coming from a dude who makes a 7-figure salary on the backs of college athletes that make no money. Very, very interesting to hear Mark Emmert say something like that. I mean, I'm not entirely surprised because I think Mark Emmert is, 95% of the problem with the NCAA to begin with. The NCAA is a joke. The NCAA is nothing more than a figurehead with, its cute little 4 letters that gets to put its logo on shit, like the NCAA tournament and, all the bowl games. They don't do anything. What does the NCAA actually do? Oh, they put out postseason sanctions. They don't even really suspend players. It's usually the conference that's responsible for that most of the time.
They hire shitty officials.
What do they do? What does the NCAA really do? Can somebody answer that question for me? Feel free to message us on Facebook, or feel free to tweet at us at OB_DeadSports. What does the NCAA really do?
You know what else he said that I found hilarious? And it wasn't necessarily a statement of... It wasn't either of the 2 things you said. It was kind of a different part of that statement
Mark
and equation.
Emmert?
Yeah. But he said, we fully expect to have all this wrapped up before the beginning of the big tournament.
Get the fuck out of here.
What are you talking about? And here's the thing. If he actually believes that, and if there's actually any validity to that, which I can't imagine there being a possibility of that being the case, then all that means, to me, that tells me the NCAA was in and on from the beginning anyway. That's what that means to me. If they get this wrapped up before the tournament, that means they were fully aware of all of this before this report came out.
That's very interesting conspiracy theory about the NCAA that I'm not going to poo-poo that. Not for 1 second.
Because there's no other way. There's no way you can wrap that all up.
Look at it this way. Take it from the local angle.
Yeah.
Take it from, Miles Bridges. We'll just go with him. Because, in theory, $400, that's inappropriate benefits. It really is.
Truth.
But he was supposed to be suspended, but then he was reinstated right before the Wisconsin game.
Correct.
Why? He either did something wrong or he didn't do anything wrong.
The reinstatement, I read this today. The reinstatement was verified after what he had to do to get reinstatement, he had to pay back $40 to the NCAA, which was the equivalent of what they deemed a meal.
Wait a minute. What is this? Is this like getting bailed out of jail? You got to pay 10% of your bond?
That was it. But here's let me take this in another direction though with the Miles Bridges thing. Is like he had to pay back 40. Like that was like what he had to do in order to be looked at for reinstatement, which obviously was just all completely a formality. Clearly, they were going to do it. But here's the thing. From everything that I understand about this Miles Bridges side of things, and this is what I've read, this is what I believe from the very beginning. In fact, I was texting with Sam the moment this news came out, and he texted me and he was like, "Man, I hope it was a bad look for MSU." And I said, "You know what? Yes, it is, but at the same time, I'm not concerned. I think they're going to be vindicated very quickly because I don't think there's going to be anything to this story or hardly anything enough to make it even a big deal, right? Because the whole point of this is that none of what's happened on MSU's side or with the Miles Bridges part of this story has anything to do with Miles. It doesn't. Miles wasn't part of this meeting. Miles didn't get any money. Miles didn't pay anybody any money. Miles doesn't even fucking know who this agent is. So the fact that there's two things to this. One, Miles, in my opinion, is in the clear already anyway, because I think Miles had no part of any of this. And secondly, if that is the case, why the fuck does Miles have to pay any money? That doesn't make any sense. A kid who, by the way, isn't getting paid by the NCAA.
You must have quit.
Just so we're clear. Not getting any money from the NCAA, but he had to pay them $40. That makes sense, right? I mean, for God's sake.
I think the other side of that coin, I think Tom Izzo opened his mouth a little bit too soon on this, because Tom Izzo did say that he came out and said that it's absolutely untrue. But that there were any benefits given to Miles Bridges' mother, but the evidence, Tom, does suggest otherwise. Now, what does Tom Izzo know? I don't know. I don't really care. Here's the thing. I don't really care. If I find out tomorrow that Tom Izzo has been involved in trying to get players benefits for the last however long he's been there, since 1996, he's been doing it all along, I'm not going to think anything less of Tom Izzo. I don't, that's the shit that I just don't care about. I've really changed my stance on this over the years. A guy like John Calipari, right? We talk about Cal all the time. He cheats. He always gets the best players because he's paying them. Now, we don't know that that's 100% true, but even if he is, I don't really care. Because you know what that suggests to me? Once these kids finally decide to, the NCAA finally decides that it's okay, let's find a way to compensate these kids and pay them actual money, whether it's in some sort of trust fund that they don't get till they graduate or whatever they decide to do. Doesn't matter. You know what we're going to do? We're going to sit here and we're going to look at John Calipari and we're going to go, he shattered the mold. He started this thing. Same thing if, we find out, Nick Saban's been doing the same thing. Because, those guys are kind of parallels when it comes to college hoops and college football. Obviously, Cal hasn't won as many championships. It's a little more difficult in that tournament. But when I hear about these coaches giving quote-unquote improper benefits, it doesn't bother me anymore. It's like it's almost like the steroid thing in baseball. What the fuck ever? Like Major League Baseball loved the steroid era. Don't tell me for 1 second that they didn't love the steroid era.
And yet now they're turning all those guys into pariahs.
Because the TV ratings were through the fucking roof in 1998 when Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa and Ken Griffey Jr. were battling it out to break that record.
Were you on the edge of your seat that year?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Baseball was incredibly healthy, especially when you consider
how about you, Mike?
4 years earlier. Hold on, 4 years earlier, there was a fucking strike, and baseball was way down.
95, right?
Yes,
95.
94.
I thought it was 95.
The Expos, right? They were supposed to win the World Series.
Somebody had a strike. Was it the NHL that had a strike in 90? Somebody had a strike in 95. NBA or somebody did. I'd have to go back. Now I'm just aging myself.
99 was the NBA.
Okay. Anyway, whatever. Doesn't matter.
What were you going to ask, Mike?
I was just going to say, because I don't think you're as big of I don't think you're a huge baseball guy. Like, I know you'll watch it, and I know you're a Tigers fan, but I don't think you're a huge baseball guy. But think back on that year we're talking about the 98 year where McGuire and Sosa were battling out. Were you not paying attention almost every night about what was going on?
Everybody was.
Right?
Honestly, I mean, I probably was, but I mean, maybe I just didn't care.
How old would you have been in 98?
15.
So, okay, so I was about 10.
It's possible, but I mean, I'll admit my passion for baseball probably waned way down, because at that time I started playing more and more soccer. Like, growing up, for me, it was all soccer, and then baseball would have been second. And when I moved here...
Don't forget about the Packers, of course.
But that would have been watching. I never played football growing up in my life. I never did. It was always soccer, baseball, and track. Moved here from Texas, and I still played soccer, but then I played 2 years of baseball, and I concentrated more on soccer. So at that point, it would have been like, all right, cool. All right, Sosa's at this. McGuire's at this. All right, cool. I could give two shits.
Okay, well, that's fair.
That is fair.
I mean, but at the time, it was that was when Sports Center was rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
Right.
When Sports Center actually met.
Yeah, dude.
Sports Center?
You had Stu Scott and Kenny Mayne and Rich Eisen calling it every single
you had
night.
Van Pelt with hair.
Absolutely. Yeah. Every night. Every night. How many home runs did Sammy hit today? How many home runs did Mark hit today?
By the way, Van Pelt, totally cool without hair.
Oh, fine with it.
Totally cooler without hair.
It's become his logo, right?
That's his thing, man.
He's got that logo with the headphones.
And that's a bit, too. It's the Scott Van Pelt out in public that's not SVP. That's fantastic. I love it.
It's true.
A bunch of bald guys with glasses.
So, and I've got a feeling, and I hope this is the case, that NCAA quote-unquote illegal benefits 10, 12 years from now are going to be viewed kind of the same way as the steroid era in baseball. Because, you still have, obviously, the 70-year-old old hats that are still pissed about steroids in baseball. But I think that most people our age and a little bit older than us, we'll say people between, 27 and 45.
Yeah.
Don't think they really care about steroids in baseball anymore.
I didn't really care then.
The only thing I care about when it comes to steroids in baseball is the fuckers that still continue to lie about it. Like, Barry Bonds can go suck a fucking dick. We know you did steroids. There's no way you didn't do steroids. Just come out with it, dude.
You know what's another interesting thing to me about the whole steroid conversation, though, too? Is yes, I understand that with steroids, when you make contact with the ball, you're just to have a different morphology of muscle to be able to power the ball out the way those guys did at the rate that they did, right?
You still have to be able to hit the ball.
You still got to be a good hitter.
Yeah, you still got to be able to hit the ball.
Here, and that's the thing that gets the loss of Barry, which that's to me is the worst thing about and I'm going to use Bonds as the biggest example of everything.
Because Barry Bonds is kind of a dick.
Yeah, it's true. But to me, and I didn't become that big of a baseball fan, and probably until, or at least not as avid a baseball fan in order to really appreciate it, until Barry was basically into his steroid years, right?
That's because the Tigers were terrible.
That's true. They were really bad. It was awful. But you look back at Barry Bonds' career, and you look at Barry with the Pirates, right? Under Jim Leyland, by the way, ironically enough, just a little local tie. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows that, but I'm just making a local tie. But anyway, Barry,
he was an all-around ball player.
As a Pirate, was a far more entertaining player overall.
He was a five-tool player.
He was a phenomenal baseball player. If Barry had stayed what he was with the Pirates and continued on that trajectory, he would have been a Hall of Famer easily.
First ballot.
No problem. No problem.
I think you could argue, and people have called me crazy because I've said this before, I think you could argue that Barry Bonds, in a way, would have been a better baseball player without steroids.
Oh, I don't think that's a hard argument at all.
Would he have hit 1 million home runs like he did? Probably not.
Wasn't he already before the steroid? Because he wound up at what, 700 and a little shy of 800,
something like that. Yeah, 780 something.
Didn't he already have over 400 before all that? He was like a 400 home run, 400 steal guy already. I mean, those are historic Hall of Fame numbers right there. So that's why you saying that you could make the argument. I don't even think it's a hard argument to make. I think that is just a fact that he would be a surefire Hall of Famer with those numbers by themselves. Those are insane numbers.
He would have had the most steals and most home runs combined of any player in the history of baseball. Well, he may still have that. I don't know. I haven't looked closely enough at the numbers.
I think I'm looking at his numbers.
I think he wound up over 500 steals.
Stolen bases, 514.
And what was the final home run tally?
762.
762. Okay.
But his stolen bases, they just drop so drastic
when he goes to San Francisco. And how old was he when he went to San Francisco?
He was 28.
28. Okay. See, that's too young to be dropping off in steals already.
It's 36, 32, 17, 32, 52, 43, 39, 29, 29, 31.
He should have had
40.
Think about that. He was probably averaging just over 30 steals a year. Those are great steal numbers.
Yeah, and then when he was,
he's no Ricky Henderson.
What was it? 98 was 28, 99 15, 11, 13 9, 7 6 0 3 5.
He stole 5 bases in his last year?
Yeah.
Wow.
035 sounds like the beginning of a code into an apartment.
Yeah. Those 5 steals must have been a defensive indifference.
I was saying he still 5 his final season.
Yeah,
good for Barry.
At 50 years old or whatever the hell he was.
Okay, so I know we got to take a break.
Yeah, to tie that back into the NCAA and the steroid era. This is something in baseball. This is something that I really think that 5-10 years from now, players are finally going to be getting paid.
I hope so.
And nobody is going to be complaining about the fact that these coaches, whether it be Tom Izzo, Mike Krzyzewski, Roy Williams, name your legendary college basketball coach, nobody is going to be up in arms about this.
It's not going to tarnish anybody.
Unless somebody's lying about it, like Barry.
Like Rick Pitino.
Well.
Fucking turd. He's the turd. He's the turdiest of the turds.
I mean, he's the one who got this whole thing started.
Well, he did, but that's because his situation was a lot more than just improper recruiting. There's a lot more to his situation than that. We talked about when that happened that I've thought Rick Pitino was dirty for a long time, but that's neither here nor there, and that's kind of moving through the past. But anyway,
dirty is so relative.
Okay, he's filthy.
Okay.
No. I have one last comment I want to make on this regard, and it's specifically about Michigan State.
All right, I'll turn the music down.
And this is gonna come over sounding real petty, like I'm a real Michigan State slappy, which obviously we all know that I'm the Michigan State guy, but I also think I'm a pretty level-headed fan and a pretty even-keeled fan for the most part. But there was one thing that came out of this situation that really, really pissed me off, and it was specifically specifically after the game on Sunday, yesterday, which obviously Miles Bridges was cleared for and played after this whole scandal. But Michigan State made the decision, and I'm sure Miles had a say in this happening. They made the decision to allow Miles to face the press completely after the game, right, and answer all the questions. And there was a lot of questions thrown at him about.
By the way,
all of
not
this.
Getting paid and has to go face the media.
Yeah. And what pissed me off about this...
By the way, he's not a pro. He's an amateur athlete.
What pissed me off about this is that there were a bunch of people, and I don't even know if you even know about this or aware of this yet, but there was a lot of people on a lot of different forms of social media that were shitting on MSU for putting Miles in front of the media and not having Miles just say, sorry, I'm not going to have comment on this. And yet you're the same fucking people that are all up in arms and pissed off that Tom Izzo won't talk about what's going on or this or that. So I'm sorry. I'm not a person to point fingers, but you can't fucking have it both ways. And I can't imagine a better possible scenario than having your star who is in the news answer the questions and answer them openly and honestly. And I got to tell you, for a 19-year-old kid, I thought he handled himself incredibly well and was incredibly candid.
I'm sure he was coached, but it is what it is.
But even so, this kid still got to face it. Even if he was coached to a certain degree, there's nobody sitting next to him when the fire is being stoked. He still has to answer it on his own. And so I thought he handled himself incredibly well. And I thought that was, to me, that was exactly the PR move that Michigan State needed to make, was to put him in front of the people and let him answer the questions. I thought it was great. Maybe that's me being biased. You can call me that if that's what you believe. But I think that the people that are trying to shit on MSU saying it was this terrible PR move, you're fucking idiots. That's my personal opinion.
No, I don't ever necessarily have an issue with that. I do think that Tom Izzo should be taking more of the front on that, just because he's the one that's being paid to be the head basketball coach.
Well, yeah, but you know what the weird thing about the situation though is, to be honest, and this goes back to what I said about the whole thing with Miles having to pay $40 back, and it has nothing like this. Really, in general, when you look at what the facts are and what is being accused, this doesn't really even have that much to do with Michigan State. Generally, if you actually read what it is, it's really more so about an agent trying to coerce, trying to get Miles Bridges' parents to commit that he will sign with that agency when he's ready for the draft. Yeah. Which that shit happens all the time.
So no. The fact of the matter is, could you believe that Tom Izzo? And I don't like that Tom Izzo came out and said that it's absolutely false that those benefits were given. Because
maybe I don't know. Maybe that's what he was told.
That's probably not true. But can I believe that Tom Izzo didn't know about it? I can believe it, but at the same time, if he did know, I still don't really care. It's just like it's like I said, 10 years from now, just like the baseball steroid thing, this whole deal, I don't think anybody's going to care.
Yeah, the whole debate's so asinine because it shouldn't even be a conversation anymore. Players should have been paid a while ago. This shouldn't be on the table anymore.
They're going to have to move the goalposts again. The NCAA, they don't have a choice now. This is it. Because you can't take all of these blue blood programs, and from a money perspective, you can't give them postseason sanctions. It's just that you can't do it. Not all at the same time. And because if you do it for one, you have to do it for all of them. You don't have a choice.
It's true.
So we got to move the goalposts again, just as they've done for 100 years.
And just for another little piece, and this was something that was brought up on one of the podcasts I was listening to earlier. They were talking about how college hockey players and college baseball players can make the decision to go pro and make themselves money if they want. Right away. Doesn't matter when.
And still go back to school.
Right. Basketball,
football,
and football can't. You know why? Because they make a fucking ton of money for the schools. It's that simple.
You're listening to Out of Bounds Detroit Sports. David Faze, Mike Tripp, myself, Dan Griffin. SportsRadioDetroit.com. Do not go away.
Welcome to my house, baby, take control now. We can't even slow down. We don't have to go a while. Welcome to my house, play that music too loud. Show me what you do now. We don't have to go a while.
Hey, this is Brittany Wagner with Last Chance U, and you're listening to Out of Bounds Detroit Sports.
I got up and went up to go to use the restroom.
And it's now.
Only money on whiskey and beer. Yeah, welcome back. Out of Bounds Detroit Sports. David Faze, Mike Tripp, and myself, Dan Griffin, invading your ear hole as always. SportsRadioDetroit.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever the hell you listen to podcasts. And please go to SportsRadioDetroit.com. Check out all the fantastic content that's available there. The new SRD Pop tab. Hey, maybe you're looking to take a break from some sports listening. There's more available. Got the over-under fair. You got the Parsons and Slow. You got the laugh tracks. It's not always about sports. We're trying to branch out here at sportsradiodetroit.com. And I got to tell you, I came back with this song for a reason. It's not quite March yet. I'm getting geared up for St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
I'm getting geared up. I love this song. I'll sing this song with no music. I know every word to this song. It's my first Irish drinking song I ever learned. You guys know any good Irish drinking songs?
No.
Not a one.
No.
I'm going to teach you one. I'm going to teach you this one.
Does Whiskey in the Jar count? Not really.
I don't know.
Maybe the original.
I don't know if that's necessarily it's definitely an Irish song.
It's
I
not.
don't know if it's necessarily a drinking song. But don't they all kind of go together? I'll teach you this one, too. This is my favorite.
Ho, ho, the rattling bog, the bug down in the valley, oh. Rare bog, the rattling bog, the bug down in the valley, oh.
Everybody wants to river dance.
Everybody wants to become Michael Flaherty after they have a few pints.
I've only been down to the Rattling Bog 1 or 2 times in my life. You both hung out with me on St. Patrick's Day.
Truth.
Now, for the time that we hung out on St. Patrick's Day, Dave, we were busy doing a show, so I didn't really get to turn into my true Irish self.
It was a little more tame for all involved because we had priorities to take care of.
We did a show.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, when did I hang out with you?
We went to Canada, dude.
Oh, that's right.
We went to Canada before I was even able to drink.
This guy took a trip with you, and he's still like, what do we do on St. Patrick's Day?
Oh, my God, I totally forgot about that.
We
Holy shit.
We went to the Boob bar.
Which one was it? What was it?
I mean, there's only like 3 of them up there.
We went to Cheetah's.
Cheetah's, that's it.
Yeah,
that's the one.
Because those boob bars in Canada are so much better than they are here. Not even close. You get to drink booze, and you get to have chicks pick up dollar bills off your face with their snatch.
The girl hits you in your face with her boob, and she goes, "Oh, I'm sorry."
I remember one time I went to Cheetah's. This is back when I was. Now I couldn't give 2 shits to go to a strip club, mostly because personal reasons. But they're not as fun for me as they used to be. But I remember I took my buddy to Cheetah's on his 19th birthday. Right, we went to Windsor. Went over there to have a little bit of fun, and so we usually what I liked to do was we'd go to the casino, play a couple hands of blackjack, whatever you want to do, get the night rolling a little bit, and then you go hit the strip, right? You go hit the strip in Windsor, and we'd always end up at Cheetah's all the time, and so I roll in with my buddy at Cheetah's, and I said, buddy, it's your birthday. I'm gonna let me buy you a dance, and so I'm like, pick which one you want. Pick your lady. Pick your favorite lady. So he points this girl out. He'd never been to a boob bar before, so he's like, I guess I like that one. So I go up to her. I'm like, it's my buddy's birthday. I'd like to buy him a dance. What I didn't realize is that she's like Eastern European with a funny accent. And so she takes my buddy back to the little VIP area, right? Gives him a dance, and he comes out with a big old grin on his face, right? Being a 19-year-old kid, I'm like, "How was it?" He's like, "It was awesome." And I said, "Well, what was so special about it?" He goes, "She had a Russian accent, and she called me Mr. President." She did the cliche Marilyn Monroe thing. Happy birthday, Mr. President.
Except that didn't sound very Eastern European.
Yeah, I don't know. I was kind of trying to make it sound like a combination of Eastern European and Marilyn Monroe. How do you do that?
I don't know. Maybe we should ask Siri that. Hey, Siri.
What am I supposed to ask her?
How would a Eastern European say happy birthday, Mr. President?
Hey, Siri. She's not listening. She's a bitch. Fucking twat. Never mind. Fuck her. Fuck Siri. She's a dirty bitch.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other time I was at Cheetah's, I've had a lot of memories at Cheetah's.
Sounds like it.
It was before the story I just told you. So right, maybe I might have told this story on the show before. So I'm at the Boob bar with another one of my buddies. Right, we're having ourselves a good time. He's really having a good time, and my phone just keeps getting blown up while I'm there. I feel it ringing in my pocket over and over and over again. I go out to have a cigarette, and I notice I pull out my phone. I'm like, "Who the fuck has been calling me?" I look at it, and I got like 15 missed calls from my mom. All right, so you get 15 missed phone calls from your mom, you know something's up, right? Like that's not something normal, right? So I call her back, and she's in a frenzy. I'm like, what's going on? She's like, your grandmother is in the hospital, and it doesn't look like she's gonna make it. I'm at a Boob bar, and my mother calls me to tell me that my grandmother is on her deathbed. And let's keep in mind here, I'm bombed. I have no plans to leave anytime soon. It's like 11:30 at night. So I have to go, and I have to peel my buddy off of a stripper and go. I go, Sean, we gotta go. He's like, why? What's going on? I got a family emergency. And he's like, what's going on? I'm like, my grandma's dying, and I'm at a Boob bar right now. We got to go. It's funny thinking back on it now.
You probably sobered up like that.
Oh, I did pretty quickly. And my buddy, he's a good guy, so he understood. He was like, oh, yeah, dude, let's get out of here. Let's go get you some coffee so we can go home. And so we get me sobered up a little bit, and I go. We go pick up the car, and we're driving home. We get across a bridge. I took a wrong fucking turn somewhere. I didn't know where the hell I was. All I know is I'm driving up to, you know how when you go across the Ambassador Bridge, they've got the little booths there that you pull up to, and they ask if you're hauling anything, you got any booze, anything you need to claim, all that shit. But what I noticed about these particular booths were that they were like 50 fucking feet in the air. So I'm like, where am I? Where did I turn? I was in like the
semi lane.
The semi line. Somehow I ended up there. No. So I'm looking up 50 feet in the air at this guy. I'm like, I think I took a wrong turn. He's like, and I was shocked because normally you get these people at the border and they're like rigid and really fucking assholes. Yeah. This guy was super nice. He's like, look, it's really dangerous down here. Next time, make sure you go the right way. Are you hauling anything? And I'm in an open flatbed pickup truck, and I'm like, I didn't want to be an asshole, but I'm thinking to myself, do you fucking see anything in the bed of the truck? Because I know you can see it. I'm like, no, I'm not hauling anything. He's like, just be careful next time. And he just lets me through.
That's awesome.
And I probably was too drunk to be driving at this point. I probably shouldn't have been driving. But eventually I made it to the hospital, and of course my grandmother passed away that evening, which was sad. But it still makes for a really interesting fucking story.
That is.
It's just, you get a call while you're at a titty bar, and somebody in your family's on their deathbed. I don't know if my mom could tell when I got there, but whatever. Doesn't matter. I think I probably told her this story since then. It's been like 10 years. Anyway, that's what a St. Patrick's Day conversation gets to on this show.
Yeah.
Where were we going to go with this segment, Dave?
I think we had discussed starting with the
weird seating.
No, the wings.
Oh, god damn it! I had it backwards. They did trade.
We could do either way, I guess. But.
No, we'll start with that. They did trade Thomas Tatar for what looks like a better chance at some picks. Right? Basically,
it's. I think it's a great trade.
Well, no, I'm not saying that's a bad trade at all.
And I'll tell you a big reason why. First of all, you got picks, which is with where the Wings need to be trying to go. I shouldn't say even trying to go because I still don't really know whether or not Ken Holland or whoever is going to be in charge. I don't know whether or not they still truly believe in actually tearing it fully down. But this is a start. It's a small start, but it's a start, right? This is the way they need to go.
5 years too late.
Should have had it a long time ago. We're all in agreement there. But the thing to me that I like the most, and it's the opposite of the conversation we had with the Peter Mrazek deal, which to a certain degree, maybe like I said, even then, maybe it's a moot point because the contract is only for the end of this year. But you got rid of every bit of salary for Thomas Tatar. There was no retention whatsoever for any of the 3 years remaining.
Unlike Peter Mrazek.
That's right. So that's
it's almost like Ken Holland was listening to the show.
That's a big thing for me, that they did not retain even a tiny ounce of salary for Thomas Tatar. And quite frankly, I think this is a great return because I've always liked Tatar. I always knew what Thomas Tatar was, but I always liked Tatar.
You would.
There's no chance in hell I thought he was worth what they got for him. There's no chance in hell. First of all,
recap it. What exactly did they get for him?
They got and this is the big thing for me. The multitude of picks is nice, but the fact that you got a first rounder this year is huge. Because I think a lot of people in the discussion of trying to trade Mike Green, which that's a different conversation entirely. But I think a lot of people, at least for a while, thought that the Wings might actually be able to garner a first-round pick for Mike Green. And at a certain point this season, that actually might have been possible. But things kind of moved in different directions for different teams, and so that kind of fell off. But anyway, they got a first-rounder this year, a second-rounder next year, and a third-rounder in 2021, I believe.
Woo! Ken Holland. Best trade you've ever made.
The first rounder is the big one, though. So the Wings, as it stands right now, and it could actually go up to as many as 8, depending on the Peter Mrazek thing. Which that was one of the conditions. If Peter Mrazek wins 5 games, which he's only got 2 more left to go after tonight to win 5 games. If he wins 5 games and the Flyers make the playoffs, the 4th-round pick that they got becomes a 3rd-rounder. And then there's another way, depending on some playoffs, because I can't remember exactly the language, but it could go as high as a 2nd-rounder if they do really well in the playoffs.
Can you feel it, Dave?
Yeah, I feel everything.
Can you feel it?
Yes, I feel pain.
About to spread its wings and let you know it can fly.
Red Wings, my Red Wings.
I had that patch. The Konstantinov and Sergei Manalzakanov patch. I had that patch. Anyway. So, but basically, right now, so the Wings, if barring anything crazy happening to the Flyers, look, I don't think there's any way that Peter Mrazek isn't going to win 2 more games over the course of the rest of the year.
He's already won 3?
He's already won 3.
I didn't even realize.
And I think the Flyers will make the playoffs.
Dude, it's not even March. If he doesn't win, if he doesn't win 2 more games.
Well, that's the thing, though. Like, the 5-game part is not the part that's really.
You're talking about the other incentives.
It's not. That's not the part that's in doubt. It's he has to win 5 games and they have to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Those things coincide with each other. So I think they will. So
it gets even better if they make it to the conference.
If they
finals,
make it to the conference finals, it goes all the way to us. And he wins. I think he has to win 6 games over the course of the first 2 rounds, which obviously I don't think there's any way he wouldn't be the number 1 goalie for them.
Yeah,
so
I don't think that's possible. Yeah. And they make the conference finals.
So anyway, let's. I'm not even going to worry about that part. Let's just say the initial thing happens. He wins his 5 games. They make the playoffs, right? If you take that and you lump that into now the rest of the picks that the Red Wings have, the Red Wings will have 8 of the first 93 picks in this upcoming draft, which is a lot of picks. But they got to make them work, and that's the other part of the equation. That's a big part. But
and
they
trust
make
Ken Holland to get them right?
I don't know. It depends on where they're picking.
It's tough to know whether the top talent that he's recently drafted, whether he got him right. Now we think Anthony Manta's a hell of a player.
By the way, here's what I would do if I'm Ken Holland. I don't know where the Vegas Knights pick is going to be. Probably low in the first round because they're a really fucking good team, right? Shockingly enough, they're really good. The Wings pick is going to be probably low because they're going to, or high, however you want to say that. It's going to be high, I guess, because they're probably not going to make the playoffs. Hopefully, they don't make the fucking playoffs. I don't even know what I would do, but anyway, they go into anybody who doesn't make the playoffs goes into the lottery, right? It's just a giant lottery ball, and you hope for as high a pick as you can get. But if it's me. If I don't get lucky enough, which would be an incredible stroke of luck, if I don't get lucky enough to get the first overall pick, I might package a couple of those and see what it would take to trade for the first overall pick. Because I'm telling you right now, We talk all the time. We've talked about it ourselves. We've talked about it with Sean Belize on this show. It is such a simple formula in the NHL these days of how you become good and how you win. And it's you have to have top-end talent. It's been proven over and over and over again, especially in the cap era, right? You have a kid coming out this year, a Swedish defenseman by the name of Rasmus Dahlin, who is basically, by every single analyst who knows the game, projected to be like the defensive equivalent in terms of overall talent level, the defensive equivalent to like a Connor McDavid or an Austin Matthews, right? A franchise-changing type of talent. You got to get a guy like that.
You're looking for Nick Lidstrom 2.0?
You need a guy like that. I think he's a different player, but yes, you got to get a guy like that. That's how it starts, right? So if you can package a couple picks, you have 8 picks in the first 93 picks of the draft. You can give up a couple, move up, grab that guy, and be very comfortable as you move through the rest of the draft.
If you got 8 picks in the first 90, so how many rounds is that?
There's set. Well, there's 7 rounds in the NHL.
Right. So the first 93 picks, 31 teams, right?
Correct.
Or 30? Is it 31 or 33?
It's 31 now.
31, something like that.
It's 31 now with Vegas.
So
that's the first 3 rounds.
Just barely into the 4th round.
Basically, yeah.
So you want to trade half of those picks to get that first overall pick?
I
would.
do it.
I would in a New York goddamn minute.
I would totally do that. Absolutely. Without even blinking.
Because it's like the NBA draft and the NHL draft are very similar in that way. Those first few guys, you know what they are. You know what they are. You know what they're going to be. The Connor McDavids, the Austin Matthewses, going back in time, the Sidney Crosbys, those kind of guys. Those guys. I mean, you know that those first 1, 2, 3, sometimes 4 guys are going to be Hall of Fame caliber players. If you got a chance to get one of those guys, you better fucking do it.
And that's the thing is, like, you look at this draft is considered to be pretty deep. So like let's just play devil's advocate. Let's say that the Wings wind up that the lottery balls fall where they may, and the Wings wind up like in the 8 to 10 range again, basically right where they were last year, right? You're probably going to wind up with a chance to draft a better player than what you got last year in Michael Rasmussen. And Michael Rasmussen might be fine. I'm not trying to project on any player because I have no idea what these kids are going to be, right? But you're probably going to wind up. You should have a chance to draft a guy who's a little higher upside than that, right? But the problem is, and this isn't a shot at Anthony Mantha because I think we are both in agreement that of everybody on the team, Anthony Mantha probably has the highest upside and has a chance to be a pretty darn good NHL player for quite a while. He's a big physical kid.
But at least I still think he's a second line forward.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
He's a second line forward on a good team.
He's not the stud that's going to push you to the precipice, right? And that's the point here. So you could probably this year at the 8 to 10 range get a guy that's going to be like a Mantha in terms of talent level, which is a good player. Don't get me wrong. It's a good player. But that's not the guy that's going to change the direction of your franchise. And that is the kind of player that you need to get right now to start changing the culture of what the Wings have now become in the cap era. That's what you have to do. And that's why, like we said, there's not a chance in hell I'm even blinking for a second at trading 4 or 5 picks to go up and get the first round
here's
pick,
an interesting
first overall
here's
pick.
an interesting question. Do you allow Ken Holland to do that? Do you allow Ken Holland to make that decision? Or do you...
To make the decision to trade up to get the first round pick? Or the first overall pick?
To do any of it. To make the trade, to make the pick, or are you...
I gotta believe that even Ken Holland's not stupid enough to fuck up taking Rasmus Dahlin if he can get to the first overall pick.
I agree with that.
I gotta think he's not dumb enough to fuck that up.
Does anybody want Ken Holland to be making these decisions? Like, do you want Ken Holland to be responsible for rebuilding this franchise at this point?
No.
So it has to start now then. It has to start as soon as the season's over, his contract's done, you move on. But now you have to rely on the new guy to make the right moves. It's almost like, devil you know or the devil you don't know. I don't want Ken Holland making that pick. I'm going to take the guy I don't know every time.
Yeah, we already talked about that. 100%. I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's anybody out there because let's call it what it is. I understand that it's Ken Holland, But this was a nice move by Ken Holland. Now, he's 1 for 100, so good for him. Do I want to count him? Do I want to count on him to be 2 for 101 and 3 for 102? No, I don't think I want to do that. I don't want to do that. But we can give credit where credit is due. I think this was a very nice trade.
Yeah, agreed. And I do also want to make this point. And I know we weren't necessarily talking about Mike Green, but I do want to segue to that slightly because obviously that was the guy that everybody, including myself, just automatically assumed was gone, right? Now, if you take a quick glance or if you just take a quick judgment call on the fact that he wasn't moved, you're going to go, well, that was a terrible fucking mistake. But I do think, and unfortunately, the biggest factor was kind of out of the Wings' control, to be honest, which is that Green got hurt at the worst possible time, right? And wasn't able to come back and play. Even if he had played 1 or 2 games right before the deadline, right, I think it would have been fine. But because he wasn't able to come back at all, and injuries are a fickle thing, we know this, and sports injuries can be really weird. Some of them are heal like that, and some of them linger for forever. And so because you don't know exactly what the situation is, I shouldn't say don't know what the situation is. These people all have the medical reports, but you don't know exactly.
I hope you can go for I can. A minute. I have to pee.
You don't know exactly how well the injury is going to heal. The problem here was that Mike Green got hurt at the worst time, and the Wings were not, even though they wanted to move him, they weren't just going to give him up for absolutely nothing, basically. They weren't just going to sell Mike Green for the sake of getting like a 5th-round pick or some bullshit like that. So they had to make a decision on whether they wanted to just keep him rather than to give him up for pennies, or whether it was that important to get an extra pick and move him for, like I said, a 4th or 5th round guy, which is, or 5th round pick, which I think is about where it stood at the end. And I don't blame the other teams that were inquiring on Green for not wanting to jump at giving up the kind of assets they were going to have to give up for a guy who they weren't really 100% sure that he was going to be ready to go and be a big piece of what they were doing moving forward towards the playoffs. So I get that part of it. I get the other team's angle on it. But I also think...
You can hear the toilet
I
mics,
also
by the
think
way.
that... That's fine. I also think that it's really strange where the Wings are right now, because there's a lot of people saying that there's actually, especially now that they've not moved him, and I had actually heard rumblings about this being a possibility even if they did move him, but there's a lot of people saying that there is a strong possibility now that the Wings will attempt to re-sign Mike Green in the offseason rather than let him leave. Now, I don't know what that's going to cost. I don't know what but here's what's weird. Now, on the outside, and as we talk about starting the rebuild, that seems like a really weird move, and it seems like a move you don't want to make if you're trying to make a rebuild, right? However, there's 2 reasons why I could get it. One, he is a really good player. Okay, this is to me, re-signing Mike Green wouldn't be like going out and signing Trevor Daley. Okay, that's first and foremost. Mike Green's a very good NHL player. He's not Trevor Daley is mediocre. He'd be a really good third pairing defenseman for a good team, right? But that's not what he was brought in here to do, and that's neither here nor there. That's a different discussion. But the other part of it is Mike Green is really, to a certain degree, kind of the kind of defensive player that the Wings are trying to produce themselves. And so in a weird way, if the Wings are going to continue this thing of having at least a few veterans on the roster, and you know they're going to do that because it's just what the Wings do, I can at least to that degree understand wanting a guy like that who, look, is not going to be a detractor to your roster. He's not going to hurt you on your roster. He's a good player. He's going to be good because he knows how to play the game, and he's been pretty consistent through his entire career. And you could have your young guys, especially the young guys that you think have a chance to be that kind of defenseman. That's a great role model and example to show them of what they can do.
The problem,
so I get that.
The problem is the cap. It's not an issue of Mike Green. It's an issue of Ken Holland.
Well, and that's the thing. I don't know what he will cost. That's the big part of the equation that I can't speak to.
Let me put it to you this way. what I would be most concerned with with regards to, any type of re-signing of Mike Green,
his term.
Yes, the years. If you're going to offer Mike Green a 5-year contract,
I don't think that'll happen.
Not even close to happening. If we're talking about signing Mike Green to a couple $1 million contract on a 1 year, maybe some sort of option, I might be okay with that.
I'd give him 2.
But at the same time, why? I mean, I heard everything you just said, but still, it's just why? What good does it do you other than what you said? Oh, maybe he can teach some young players. I mean, I get what you're saying when you say that, but I also think that that's something that is really overrated in professional sports. Oh, these veteran guys, they teach these young players how to play. I don't think that happens very often. These players are what they're going to be.
Well, I think you're right to an extent, and what I mean by that
is an overrated value.
What I mean by that is, I think the guys that you are hoping are going to take some things from a guy like that are the guys that are. I don't want to say fringe because I don't mean fringe. That's not what I mean. But the guys who are, in hockey terms, I'll use this way: a guy who is probably more likely destined to be like a third pairing guy, or maybe a low level second tier, the second pairing defenseman. Right? You're not looking at the elite guys needing that guidance to be good, right? Because they're going to be good either way because they're just really talented. So those aren't the guys that you're worried about having the quote-unquote example of this veteran presence, right? So, but and you could come, people could come back with that with an argument of, well, then you really shouldn't have, if those guys need that much guidance, you shouldn't need them on the team. But look, very few teams are going to have 6 defensemen all the time that are guys that on any other team could be first or second tier. That's just it's not realistic, right? You got to have some. It's not
1984 anymore, right? Professional athletes are professional athletes. I don't care if you're 20. I don't care if you're 18. I don't care if you're 22. I don't care if you're 24, 28, or you're a wily veteran. You know what it takes to be you don't need. I don't like the a role model argument anymore. Particularly in games like hockey. In the NBA you can see it to a degree. You bring in a guy, a veteran like, I don't know, like an Al Jefferson. And you sit him on the end of your bench and you pay him league minimum, and it just is what it is. In hockey, you've got many more guys on the roster. These guys are brought up to be professional hockey players from the time they're in juniors. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22-year-old kids playing junior hockey. I got a chance to, work in the OHL a little bit. Now, I've seen this stuff. Those kids are already treated like they're pros. This is what they do. This is already their job from the time they're 16 years old. They know what they need to do to be able to succeed in the NHL. So this idea of having a veteran presence in the locker room, I just don't think it applies that much. So that's why I said, if you want to bring back Mike Green for a year or two at a respectable contract, I don't care, but I don't trust Ken Holland to do that.
Let me ask you something.
Don't.
Let me ask you something, because I'm just, again, playing devil's advocate here and also basing off the history of things. Again, if Ken Holland is the one directing everything, which we don't know what's going to happen, right? But let's say it is Ken. Let's say that he wants Mike Green back and he offers him a deal, right? I'm not even going to speak to the monetary value because I obviously have no idea what Mike Green will be worth on the market. So I have no clue what the salary number would be talking about. And trust me, there's a number in my head that I'm thinking of that would be very unpleasant.
Under 3?
But
under $3 million a year.
Would you be upset if they gave him the same term that they gave to Trevor Daley, which was 3 years?
Yeah.
See, I would be okay with it only because I think, I don't think a 3-year term is that terrible at the right price, and I think that Mike Green is a far better player than Trevor Daley, right? So I didn't like that deal just because I don't like Trevor Daley that much.
Here's the thing, Dave. I think in most circumstances...
Because he's 33, 34, Mike Green?
I would say in most circumstances it wouldn't bother me, but the way that this team has already hamstrung itself with the cap, it bothers me a little bit more. Like, if you've got room, fine. It doesn't really fucking hurt you.
Well, he will definitely have to take a pay cut from what he's making now. That's for damn sure. He's making, 6.5, 6.3, something like that.
Then in that case, he'll probably be gone. He'll probably walk away. There'll probably be another team.
Well, here's the thing. I think he's going to take a pay cut either way. There's no chance in hell that he's making $6 million again.
No, but he
just
can
based on age.
He can make 4
maybe
on
that,
a team that can afford him that's close to contending.
I was going to say, here's the thing. My gut would tell me, even if the Wings have interest in re-signing him, my gut would tell me that Mike Green, especially at this stage in his career...
Actual audio from Mike Green? I know you're ready for it. If it'll play.
I'm good to go now. I'm good to go, man. Shit.
Even though all indications are that he's actually... really enjoyed his time in Detroit, and I can believe that. I really can believe that. But the same thing,
I saw him at the same time last year.
Oh, good for you.
I did. I saw.
Didn't he have a hot bra with him? Didn't you tell me that?
He did, but she was really pregnant.
Oh, so was his side piece, and he was just being indulgent. No, I'm just kidding.
I think she was eating a big old bowl of chili.
Good for her.
I don't know.
That's how I hope Kristen is when she gets pregnant. I hope she just eats shit.
I expected Mike Green to be taller.
He's 6'1".
I feel like I had I feel like I had a foot on him.
Well, maybe you did.
Because I'm 6'2".
Maybe they put hockey players heights up there in skates. Yeah.
Well, it's Zdeno Chara. Yeah. He's 6'11" on skates.
I think he's about 7'2" on skates.
That's it.
But no, what I was going to say was I would be of the belief that at this point in his career and the things that he has already accomplished as an individual player, I would think that Mike Green's biggest goal now would be to try in his last few years in the league to try to win a title, right? And that's not happening here. He's smart enough to know that, I think.
I was the shit back in the day.
So
actual audio from Mike Green.
So I would think that, yeah, you're probably right, more than likely, especially if the money is equal. There's no way in hell he's going to re-sign here and not go to a contender, right? You want to give yourself a chance at a Stanley Cup. I mean, that seems logical to me. So, I mean, we'll see. There's a lot of factors going into this next offseason, but the biggest thing to me, and not just in the pick, the biggest thing for the Wings this coming offseason is going to be the draft for two reasons. One, the draft itself and the picks that they make, but also, as we've seen, especially in the last 5-6 years, there are so many trades that are made at the draft. Wow, I just got really deep. I don't know what just happened there.
I'm
fucking with my mic?
I'm fiddling with your knob.
And it turned me up.
Sounds hot.
Well, turn up your bass a little
bit.
But does sound to you.
I don't think I need more extra bass, Dan, but thanks.
Yeah.
That's great.
Golden voice, David Faze.
I was homeless.
See what happens when we mess with this one.
I don't really know what's going on right now.
You have to speak.
I don't like that one at all. It's very empty.
There we go.
Leaves me feeling empty.
That's good.
No, but the trades that are made at the draft are a big piece of what teams do as well. And that was another spot where, again, if Ken Holland's the one in control and we don't know what's going to happen, I have no idea how this is all going to play out.
By the way, name of the episode, Fiddling with Dave's Knob.
Fine. That's going to get some clicks. No, but there's at least 2 or 3 other guys on this roster that are viable trade candidates for teams. And I don't mean in a sense that Holland can smooth somebody into taking him. I mean, like, there's a couple players on this roster that would legitimately be good pieces for some teams that are much closer to being ready to win, right? So if he can move a couple other guys, Nyquist would be one, right? That's right off the top of my head. That'd be another one that you can move. Then
how about any of the overvalued talent?
So everyone on the roster.
Oh, good call.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, nobody on the... Is there a person you can name on the Red Wings roster here before we move on? Is there a person you can name that is absolutely untouchable?
No.
Not a single soul.
No.
Not a soul. Tells you exactly where you are with your overvalued talent.
Yeah, I mean, that's a relative question, though. Like, that's going to the extreme. Like, there's very few teams that are going to look at the roster and be like, all right, these two guys are absolutely because there's not a single player. I shouldn't say that. There's about 10 players in the league that I can think of off the top of my head that I would say for whatever team they play for are probably untouchables unless that other team comes in with a trade offer of something like that you've never even heard of before. It's the only way those players are going to be moved, right? So there's very few teams in the league that actually have those absolute untouchable types of players. But to your point, there's not a lot of players. There's two players on this team that I think you'd have to be, I don't want to say blown away by, but you'd have to get a really, really, really good trade offer for, and that's Mantha and Larkin. Those are the only two I can think of. Anybody else, I don't even think it has to be that big of an offer. I move anybody. I don't give a shit. Move them all. Get rid of everybody. There's nobody with that many redeeming qualities that I'm like, oh no, what are we going to do if we lose that guy?
I don't think I'd be requiring that big of a haul for Mantha or Larkin for that matter. I mean, you obviously want something, but
they're young, controllable talent. That's why.
And that's
the big thing.
That's really the only reason. Yeah, I don't think there's a single player on this roster that I look at and go, that's a top line forward. That's a top pairing defenseman. Without question. On any team in the league. There's nobody on this team that I look at and say that. Nobody. Not a single player. So, everybody's a tradable asset, in my opinion.
Well, the reason that I disagree with that about Mantha especially is the fact that because of what his strengths are, I look at a guy like that and I think, you put him on like a line with like Sidney Crosby in Pittsburgh, right? That dude can score 40 goals. No problem. But he's not playing with enough talent around him. That's the thing, and that's where this team is so lacking. They don't have enough pieces.
Go back a few years. What's his nuts in Chicago? Panarin.
Panera?
Yeah, Panarin.
I know you're talking. Yeah.
That's a kid that I had conversations with other hockeynistas going, oh, he's only good because he's on a line with Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves. It's the only reason he's good. Yeah, well, he was the rookie of the year, so I get what you're saying. If you put Mantha with Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves, how good of a player do you think he is?
Probably quite good.
Yeah,
he's going to show out.
When you've got a guy that distributes the puck like Patrick Kane does, you look at Patrick Kane, you go, he scores a lot of goals. Dude distributes the puck really well. And you've got Jonathan Taves, who's a guy
just a phenomenal all-around hockey player.
And I've said this about him forever. He's Steve Yzerman 2.0.
Yeah.
Where's the same number? Well, young captain.
Here's the other thing when you're Panarin or whoever that third guy is in that line. Not only do you have really good guys setting up for you, there is absolutely no attention being paid to you, relatively speaking, right? When whatever line is out there defending you, every bit of attention is being paid to Taves and Kane, and I understand it, and rightfully so, right? So you think about the lack of pressure on you, and how much that frees you up to play your game and to be the sniper that you are, or the slick goal scorer, whatever phrasing you want to put on it. There's a reason why a guy can excel when you're playing with guys with players like that. It's because all attention is being paid to them. And so you still got to have the talent to score goals. I'm not saying you could throw Luke Glendening on there and he's going to score 35 goals. It's not my point. But still, if you're a good enough player,
could Luke Glendening score 20 goals?
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean,
on a line like that.
Yeah, he scored 8 with nobody here this year, so I think he could probably score 20 goals.
Point is, you still got to be a good player.
That's exactly what I'm saying. You still got to be a good player. But if you're a good player and you're playing on a line like that, you're gonna have so many more opportunities than you would if you were having to do it yourself on a line where you are the number one guy.
Nobody's untouchable. That's the point.
No,
before we end the show here, the last thing we wanted to touch on was the latest. Let me pull it up here. The latest NCAA projected tournament brackets. A couple of issues we have here. It's almost time for some March Madness. It's one of my favorite times of the year.
Love it.
It's I think it's one of everybody's favorite times of the year.
Because it's such pure entertainment.
Pick your brackets. Oh, but most of these teams are going to be under NCAA sanctions, and it's not going to be the same anymore. I've got a bone to pick with this thing for a couple of reasons. Number one, I don't understand how a Michigan State team with 3 losses still is not considered a number 1 seed. It doesn't make a lick of sense to me. Even if you want to make Michigan State a number 1 seed in a region outside of the East, like so they don't get to play at LCA, fine. Whatever. How does a 3-loss Michigan State team, who is number 2 in the country, not get the bid to be a number 1 seed? I'm interested to know your opinion on that, Dave. Because you don't seem too upset about it. And we know how much different it really is to be a number 1 versus a number 2. It's very different.
It's very true. Well, here's the thing. Before I even get into the semantics of it, the thing that I'm holding that I'm holding my hat to right now is that Michigan State goes out and handles its business and wins the Big Ten tournament. I don't think there's any chance in hell they're not the number 1 seed. If you win the Big Ten,
what if the other 4 teams win all their conference champ? Well, I guess that's not possible. Wait a minute. No, because there's 2 ACC teams, so I guess that's not entirely possible.
So you go out and win the Big Ten tournament after having been the outright Big Ten regular season title winners, right? I think there would be absolute bedlam amongst college basketball fans and people that understand the bracket if Michigan State is not given a number 1 seed at that point. I mean, I don't hold a lot of grudges, and I normally try to have a pretty level head and say, well, it is what it is and whatever about most of these kinds of things. But I will tell you right now, 100%. If Michigan State goes out, handles its business, wins the Big Ten,
what the fuck is going on?
Wins the Big Ten tournament, and it's not given a number 1 seed, it's absolute fucking blasphemy. It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense.
It already doesn't make any sense, and here's why. There's one team in here that's not even.
I haven't even seen the latest, so this is gonna be news to me.
That's not even the final number 1 seed.
Well, one of them is Villanova, right?
Yep.
One of them is Virginia.
Yep.
I know those two.
Because you know how they rank them as far as overall seeding? So Virginia's the number 1 overall seed.
Okay.
Fine.
They've had a great year.
I can live with that.
Yep.
The number 2 overall seed is Villanova.
Okay.
That's the second number 1 seed. The number 4 overall seed, the 4th number 1 seed, is North Carolina. The number 3 overall seed, or the 3rd number 1 seed,
I already got a problem with that last one you just said, but anyway, go ahead.
This is the biggest one I have an issue with, and it's fucking Kansas. Kansas has lost like 55 games at home this year.
Where are you seeing this one at?
This is on, this is SB Nation's latest one.
All right, because I'm looking at one that was updated today on ESPN.
Okay.
Number 1 overall seed again is Virginia.
Okay.
It would have been number 2, Villanova.
Those are pretty much consensus across the board, and that's fine. I can get that.
3, Xavier.
Yep.
All right.
I've seen that too.
And then 4th, Kansas.
Yeah. So the only difference between the two is that North Carolina's not in there.
Which they should not be. They're not even the best team in their own fucking conference, and they got absolutely throttled by Michigan State, by the way.
And Duke is a number 2 seed in most of these brackets. But we're seeing a common thread. At least there are some out there that are saying that North Carolina shouldn't be a number 1 seed. Fine.
Okay.
But Kansas seems to be a unanimous number 1 seed, and it really, really chaps my ass.
I got news for you, and this goes back to what I just said about Michigan State and their tournament. I don't think maybe this is a hot take. I don't think there's a chance in hell that Kansas wins their tournament, their conference tournament. I totally think they're going to lose. I don't think they're winning that thing.
Who are they going to lose to?
They're not that good.
Yeah, the Big 12's not that good either. I mean, Oklahoma's got the consensus best player in the country.
I don't even know if he's a consensus anymore. They've had a rough last couple of weeks.
They're not very good. That team's not very good.
That's all they got right now.
It's almost like Ben Simmons when he was at LSU. That team was terrible. They didn't even make the NCAA tournament, but he was the best player in the country, and was the best player in that draft. But whether you want to say Kansas or North Carolina, dump either of those two teams. How is Michigan's a 3-loss Michigan State team not a number 1 seed still to this minute?
Well, the funny thing is the first argument that would be made is that the Big Ten overall wasn't that great this year. And that's a true statement.
But for the longest time, Purdue was considered the best team in the country.
Correct. So when you're making a blanket statement about
and Ohio State is way better than we thought they'd be.
I can at least appreciate and understand that comment. But then you go over, let's just use Kansas as an example. We just said, how good is the Big 12? They suck. They're not good. So how is that team getting a pass? It makes no fucking sense. How many losses do they have? Do you have their record?
No. Oh. No, but they've lost like...
Mike, can you look up Kansas' record?
I do believe
yeah. Sorry.
I do believe they've lost
definitely lost more than Michigan State
3
has.
games at home. Michigan State's lost 1 game at home this year.
Yeah.
They're 24-6.
So they have six. All right.
And 3 of those were at home. Michigan State has half the losses. And a third of the losses
by the way, one of those losses was like the 3rd game of the year against Duke.
Yeah. To Duke.
Yeah. So
I am not the kind of guy who's going to come on this show and defend Michigan State and hope that they do well, but I don't understand why they're not a number 1 seed. Because you look at this team, I know they had a close one on the road at Wisconsin, who's not a very good team this year. I get it. But they still won the ball game. And, you know, this is a team that's proven time and time again. It's so funny. Let me just backtrack for a second. Because maybe a month ago, we were talking about a January lull for Michigan State.
He's right after that Michigan game.
They lost 2 games.
They have not lost a game since they lost to Michigan.
Yeah.
January 13th is their last loss.
And that was their only home loss.
Yeah.
And
Michigan played phenomenal.
Michigan State struggled in a couple of wins during that stretch, of course, as well. The Rutgers win. And didn't they have a game against Maryland that was pretty close? Or something?
The Rutgers win was before the Michigan game, wasn't it? I think it was.
No, I think it was after.
Was it?
I think so.
Anyway, doesn't matter.
But... Or Maryland. No, maybe Maryland was after Michigan. Because Maryland's not very good either. But
because they had already crushed Maryland too. Before that.
The point is, the fact that Michigan State's not a 1 seed is absurd to me. And just kind of moving it over to Michigan and the way that they've been treated by some of these bracketologists. Maybe a little bit better than they should be. And I can openly say that. I've seen them as a 5 seed in most, as high as a 4 seed. So you consider the fact that if they go on and they make a nice run in the Big Ten tournament, you could see them as a 3. If they win the Big Ten tournament, according to these bracketologists, Michigan may be a 3.
Well, I will say this too, by the way, speaking of the Big Ten tournament, before you continue, I'm looking to Saturday. Because I fully expect Michigan State to take care of their business on Friday, their first game. And barring anything crazy happening, we might see a semifinal game of Michigan versus Michigan State, which would be incredibly entertaining. I would really look forward to watching.
So
that
much
game.
more fun if that were the final.
Yeah, it would be really cool. That would be really cool.
But I look at Michigan and the respect that they've gotten, which is interesting to me considering the disrespect that Michigan State's gotten. Because Michigan, you could argue that Michigan has the best strength win in the country. They beat Michigan State at home.
Yeah.
They were the only team to beat Michigan State at the Breslin Center.
That's a fair point.
They may have the best win of any team that's, not in that top
Singular
1 or
win?
2. Yes.
Yeah.
That may be the best win of any team in the country. Because anybody who beat Kansas at home, who gives a shit because they've lost 3 games at home. Michigan State only lost 1 game at home, and it was to Michigan. And it was, I realize the final score didn't suggest as such, but it was kind of they won pretty handily. I mean, Michigan pretty much dominated that game.
Michigan and Michigan State said this as much, and this is kind of the way I felt watching it. Michigan out-toughed Michigan. That's the strangest thing about this Michigan team this year.
That was when Miles Bridges was Charmin soft.
Yeah. This is the strangest thing about this Michigan team this year is from an overall talent base and experience base, maybe even just experience base, but Michigan looked the part of a big-time tournament team last year a lot more than they did, at least coming into this season, right? But you look at the way the season has progressed, and this is probably in recent memory, this is the first time that I can think of watching Michigan play basketball and actually being able to see that a staple of the things that they've done this year, one of the big staples, has been they have played teams so physically tough. And that is not usually a staple of Michigan basketball. I don't mean that in a derogatory way at all. That's just not normally the way they play basketball. But man, are they physical, and they don't bow down to anybody. And I'll tell you, as a Michigan State fan, Michigan's a fun team to watch. They really are.
They've gotten bigger.
They have.
And they've done a better job of driving to the basket.
And by the way, Abdur Rahman is this year's version of Derek Walton.
He
who
is.
Just got so much better as the year has gone on.
As a
he
senior,
can be a huge X factor.
I had the same questions about Derek Walton going into his senior season. Like, he hadn't been anything up into that point.
Yeah.
He'd just been a really average player who would turn it on every once in a while.
Yeah, Rahman was like a really good role player.
Very, very similar. Because Walton was a guy that, in his senior season, you saw it. You really saw him really develop into a player. And we'd even talked about him. The possibility of Derek Walton making an NBA roster. Now he did make a practice squad there to start.
Well, he's with the Heat. He's on their G League team right now. He's had a couple of games. He's had a couple of games.
Getting tryouts. I don't think anybody expected him to be drafted. Did I say practice squad? What the fuck is this? Is this the NFL? I don't think anybody expected him to necessarily be drafted, but maybe be one of those guys that was signed, and he was. I don't know that Rahman will be that guy. I don't necessarily expect that. But the thing that makes me nervous about Michigan when it comes to tournament time, something very simple. They still can't fucking make free throws. That's a problem. Robinson can make free throws. Wagner can make free throws.
And
Rahman can make free throws. They don't have that guard.
But by the way, this is kind of a random comment, but as we're talking about Michigan, and even you as a Michigan fan, I would think would agree with this statement. Somehow Duncan Robinson was voted the 6th man of the year in the Big Ten. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't get that. Like
I didn't even realize that was a real award.
It is, and like I don't have a problem with Duncan Robinson, but I don't even know if he was the best player off the bench for Michigan. That just seems like a weird fucking thing to give to him.
Who was a better player off the bench? I mean, it's a strange thing because Beeline does change his starting lineups often.
Yes.
So it's like who's really off the bench and who's really not. Because Duncan Robinson started a considerable amount of games this year as well.
True.
So I don't know. Who cares? It's a stupid award.
I
didn't even realize.
Especially,
I didn't even realize it was a real award.
Especially in college, it's probably kind of a weird award because lineups change so frequently in college. But
when does the Big Ten tournament start?
Starts Wednesday. Is the first game, I believe. And it's going to be interesting.
Too early.
I think that, well, here's the funny part, too. Michigan State's first game in the Big Ten tournament could wind up being against their most recent opponent, which is Wisconsin. Because they play the winner of 12-13, which is Wisconsin and Maryland.
I fully expect
8-9. Sorry, 8-9.
I fully expect Wisconsin to win that game.
I think so too. Maryland's having a real down year.
They both are.
Well, it's true they are. But I think Wisconsin probably has a better overall talent base right now, which is weird to say, but I do think that's true. And I think they're like, this is a really weird bad year for Wisconsin, but I don't think it has anything to do with Greg Gard having lost the program or anything like that. And I'll tell you what, the kid that showed up against Michigan State on Sunday, that Brad Davison kid who's a freshman, he's gonna be the Big Ten's new version of who's the I can't think of it right now. The kid from Ohio State that was there for 1,000 years.
Aaron Kraft.
That's the one. Except that I think Brad Davidson's a better actual basketball
We haven't even
player.
talked about, and we won't, but how much better Ohio State is than we would have ever expected them to be.
Chris Holtman's hell of a basketball
that
coach.
looked like a really bad loss for Michigan early in the year. Now, that doesn't look like such a bad loss.
No, and I'll tell you, I don't even know if I would say it looked like a bad loss for Michigan State, but it was a shell-shocking loss because it was, it was just a moment where they're like, oh shit, we're not infallible, right?
Yep.
But yeah, anybody who lost to Ohio State at this point now.
Well, right now, Ohio State's basically ranked in the same seed range as Michigan, 4 or 5 for the big tournament.
Chris Holtman's done a hell of a job.
No doubt about it.
Hell of a job.
We've got to terminate this podcast. We may skip Thursday's show because this is 199.
We got a big moment coming up.
We've got 200 coming up. We've got to prepare for this. And we've got to get some guests, and we've got to have ourselves a good time for 200.
People to respond.
Yeah, we may skip Thursday because we want to make sure 200's a nice show for you folks and for us. We'll drink another bourbon like we did tonight, and maybe just have ourselves. Maybe we'll have ourselves a free balling show.
We can't call it that though. It's already been done.
Anyway, we'll figure out what's going on for 200. Just bear with us. We're a little behind on that planning stage. But anyway, you've been listening to Out of Bounds Detroit Sports. David Faze, Mike Tripp, and myself, Dan Griffin, sportsradiodetroit.com. And until episode 200, and whenever that may be, we are out of here.
Well, in the hole there was a tree, a rare tree, a rattling tree. Tree in the hole, in the hole, in the bog down in the valley, oh. Ho, ho, the rattling bog down in the valley, oh. Rare bog, the rattling bog down in the valley, oh. On the tree there was a branch, a rare branch, a rattling branch. Branch in the tree, in the hole, in the hole, in the bog down in the valley, oh. Ho, ho, the rattling bog down in the valley, oh. Rare bog, the rattling bog down in the valley.